Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 506, I think that might be right, of Prog Review. And today, if you haven't read the title of the description, I'm talking about Discreet Music by Mr. Brian Eno. We're going back. I should have done this one first, but hey, doesn't matter. We're doing any sequence. Let's keep ourselves on our toes. This was released back in November 1975, and this is his fourth studio album. Comes in between Another Green World and Before and After Science. And this is Eno's first foray into ambient music. It came when he was he'd been hit by a car, and he was laying in hospital. And he relates how sounds were drifting in. He was drifting in and out of consciousness, or drifting in and out of focus, and you could hear sounds kind of washing in. There was like a radio, detuned radio wafting in on the breeze, and and he came to the idea of like music not necessarily being a conscious thing. You didn't need to actually focus on it, and so this is how Discreet Music came about. And on the back, it actually shows you, because it is a generative piece in that he fed his synthesizer into graphic equalizers, into an echo unit, into two tape decks, and then out again. Certain parts of the process caused the synthesizer washes to do all sorts of things. So, like I say, it's generative. The first side, that is Discreet Music. Again, the whole first side is taken up with the title track, and it is indeed a synthesizer looped over itself and manipulated. And again, it's one of those interesting pieces. It was originally intended, I think, as a piece of music for Robert Fripp to solo over as part of the Fripp and Eno project. But I guess Eno decided it was good enough to stand on its own and, exist in this instance. Yeah, it's minimalism. There's tape delay, there's echo, repetition, erosion. There's all that stuff there. And again, it's one of those ones that's the first side is quite magical. There's something about it. Again, it was great for a Sunday morning. Now, I played this the other day. Well, not the other day. Must be a couple of weeks ago now. And my son took great interest in it, to the point where he actually put his head and rested it against the speaker, because I've got upright speakers here. And he was just like listening to that. And I said to him, "Did you like this?" I said, "Would you like the album?" He was like, so I gave him my CD copy of it, and he plays it upstairs on his little CD player that he's got and his record deck, and he really likes it. And again, this is the thing. There's something about it, and this is. I'm trying to think. Because I've done it out of sequence, I'm trying to remember because it is the first one. There's something fresh about it. I'm talking about the first piece, because when I get to the second side, it's a bit different. That first piece is new-ish. People have been playing around with tape loops for a while, but for Eno, you get the sense that it is a piece created out of discovery, and that he's taking his first tentative steps. It's not refined. It's not perfect. There are not rough edges, but it's not as smooth as his later compositions. But there is this like analog wash of warmth that propels you along, that takes you, that envelops you. And I really do like that first side. Now, when it comes to the second side, things are a bit different, and what you've got is Canon in D major by Johann Pachelbel. The wall. Do you remember British Wall? Do you remember that? The adverts back in the 70s? early bit of the 80s now with the wall, or a sheep would come on and they'd play this one. No, it was used in the British War advert anyway. All together now. Don't know where that came from. But anyway, the second half, there are 3 pieces, and they're all variations on Canon in D major, and it was conducted and co-arranged by Gavin Bryars using the Cockpit Ensemble, and so you get the familiar, opening refrains, but each person has been given different parts of the music, and it goes off on a tangent. And whereas the previous side it was mechanical, this is a human kind of generative music with each person playing slightly, like, I wouldn't say out of tune, 'cause it's not, it's more out of time than out of tune, and so you get pieces moving against each other like tectonic plates, it's like things push against each other, and there is like almost a tension and release, because you're familiar with the music. It sounds like the record deck's gone wrong, or you kind of find yourself checking it. It's not ambient in that way, because of the familiarity of the music, you do find yourself going, what? I don't remember that being like, I guess if you aren't familiar with the tune or with that piece of music, it might not be so jarring. But if you are familiar, I can imagine it's like, and so it takes you out of the moment. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if it works, because there's part of me thinks it's really clever, because it's a familiar piece of music and it's deconstructed, and it's like I say, that its component parts are taken and reconstructed to create different variations. But there's also something that feels quite wrong about it at the same time. You don't mess with the classics. It's a funny experiment. Part of me likes it. Part of me thinks it doesn't quite work. And it is also quite contrasting to the title track. Title track is an ambient piece. You can get lost in it. You can have it on. Whereas this, it does tug at your attention. So, but that's not to say it's a bad record. I mean, this one is very much an album of two halves, two sides, and it's really strange that they are kind of glued together. They are kind of because they are so contrasting and they are so different, and they, like I say, they don't feel like that they belong. They're like magnets repelling each other. So as an album, it's quite different to Eno's other ambient works. But yeah, it is a very interesting album to get, and if you are taking your first step into the ambient realm, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this one, because it is, there is this kind of dichotomy between the two sides. I would always go with maybe ambient one, music for airports and those releases, and maybe come back to this. I know that sounds odd, seeing as this is the one that started it all off, but it is. I find it jarring. That's the honest point. Is I find it a little bit jarring to to listen to. That's not to say it's a bad album. It's experimental. It's and that should be commended. Whether or not the experiment pays off totally is another matter. Right. So in terms of a rating, I'm going to be quite controversial here. I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to give this 3 fullness of winds out of 5. That's 3 fullness of winds out of 5, because there is this clashing. It is a culture clash. It isn't all the same. Again, I can imagine some people liking the variety. I find it it's just knocking against each other. The two sides just don't seem to belong. So yeah, so that's why I'm going to give it that rating. But again, do check it out, especially when we talk about all these ambient recordings. It is worth talking, seeing where it all began. Anyway, my name has been Darren. I've been talking about Brian Eno's Discreet music from 1975. Hope you've enjoyed this. Don't forget to thumbs it up. Don't forget to give me all your money. Links in the box below. I'm a cyber fame junkie. Of course I am. We do all that stuff. It's all rather boring now. It's all rather irrelevant. But the most relevant thing is that we all prog on.